Irrevocable Declaration of Independence/Dependence. Of, by, and for his people, one nation under our Creator, a nation indivisible with all our Creator's inalienable rights intact and enforced. This declaration is granted by our Creator and is irrevocable and eternal to all men, and applies to all beings of all kinds and for all of time and the end of time. This irrevocable declaration of independence/dependence is eternal and will be enforced at all cost by his people. It has become necessary for we his people to break all bands and all shackles of oppression placed on us his people by the current political, judicial courtesans and bar member treasonous terrorists that operate as a network of fascist dictatorships and monopolies, also known as the unholy trinity of the Crown/Vatican/British Empire, us and associates that have occupied and unlawfully control the land and all its inhabitants, known as the U.S. See Exhibit A, land known as the U.S., attached hereto and a part hereof and further referred to herein as the land. We his people, see Exhibit B, his people, attached hereto and a part hereof. The undersigned hereto this declaration subscribed to this declaration by the doctrine of written joinder herewith enjoin and declare our independence from the corrupt government currently in control of the land, the Crown, the Vatican, the U.S./British Empire, aka the Unholy Trinity, all its associates, its allies, all associated entities, the banking and financial entities and schemes of the Unholy Trinity, any and all forms of government not of his people, all fictitious entities, any government of any kind, any entity of any kind, any being whatsoever, any king, queen, prince, pope or any self-proclaimed entity whatsoever, except that we his people shall be subject only to the will of our Creator and any form of governance that will be determined exclusively of, by, and for we his people. As a consequence of our being occupied by hostile forces, this irrevocable declaration of independence/dependence has become necessary, and because it is unlawful for one man to contract for another, we his people herewith employ the doctrine of written joinder, that any man that has reached understanding may enjoin this declaration by affixing their signature/seal and thereby become a part hereof. Those signed and enjoined hereto are hereinafter referred to as we his people. We his people irrevocable declare our independence from all beings, all governments not of his people, all entities whatsoever. We his people declare our absolute dependence on our Creator and that we his people are dependent on each other. That this irrevocable declaration of independence/dependence must be protected and enforced at all cost by we his people, otherwise, we his people shall again become subjects and slaves of kings, queens, popes, and other similar evil-intended beings. We his people acknowledge that corruption of justice began many years ago with the dysfunctional idea to have judges, and as a consequence, we his people cried out for justice, for the judges were corrupt. We asked for justice to come in the form of a king, and our Creator granted us a king, and as it is written in the Bible in 1 Samuel 8 that God would punish us his people, for he was our exclusive king and we mistakenly put a man king before him. What a grave mistake, we have suffered so. See Exhibit C 1 Samuel 8, attached hereto and a part hereof. And as God foretold, we his people would be punished, and as of today, December 23, 2016, kings, popes, and other lost and evil souls prevail over we his people. We his people and our children became slaves of the king/pope, just as was foretold. We his people herewith denounce all judges, all kings, queens, princes, and all entities and all governance not by his people, and we herewith repent with all our hearts and souls and beg his forgiveness. We herewith declare ourselves forgiven, and we declare all judges, all kings, and all governments not of his people as mortal enemies of we his people. We his people herewith declare the Crown/British Empire, the Vatican, all their associates, employers, all entities created and operated by the Crown/Vatican, all their associates, all bar members, and all those listed herein Exhibit C as enemies of we his people. See Exhibit D, list of enemies of we his people, attached hereto and a part hereof. We acknowledge the partnership and treaty of 1213 of the Crown/Vatican, and we further denounce that the Vatican as anti-God, anti-Christ, and anti-humanity, as the Vatican claims that all souls under their control, that they are entitled to all land, and that they represent Christ himself. We his people recognize such claims could only be satanic in nature. We his people denounce the Vatican as part of the British Empire, all Vatican associates, and the Vatican's associated corporations, and all other associated fictitious entities as disciples of Satan. We further proclaim that we his people never won the Revolutionary War of the U.S., there was an alleged capitulation by General Cornwell, who actually never showed up to the alleged surrender. We further proclaim that there was no surrender, that in fact there is the Treaty of Paris 1783 whereby the Crown/Vatican and associates actually maintained complete control of this land, and we his people as of current day, which is December 23, 2016, via the long arm of the Crown/Vatican partnership known as the BAR, British Accredited Registry, which is the greatest organized crime syndicate ever known to mankind. We declare all documents written and or signed by BAR members to be fraudulent. Such documents include all documents affecting this land and we his people that were written and or signed by any BAR member. Such documents include the original Declaration of Independence, all subsequent declarations of any kind, the organic original Constitution, all subsequent so-called constitutions, the Treaty of Paris 1783, all treaties, all laws, statutes, codes and ordinances written by any BAR member to be fraudulent, to be of a foreign agent, to be of a double agent, promulgated by BAR member traders of we his people. Anything written, processed, and or signed by a BAR member whatsoever is herewith declared to be void, voidable, repealed, stricken, irradiated, and to have the mark of the beast upon and in it. We his people herewith declare this declaration and all subsequent document approved by vote of we his people of the first branch, the People's Branch, to supersede all other documents whatsoever. We further acknowledge the control of his people is by way of the banking industry controlled by the Crown/Vatican and their associates. The BAR for its founders, the Crown/Vatican, their associates and employers are currently operating martial law courts throughout the land, raping and pillaging we his people by taking people's children, their property, their intellectual rights. We his people are wrongfully imprisoned and even murdered by these BAR member beings. The BAR has infiltrated and controls all three branches of government in the U.S. and has 100% control over all laws using their BAR members, of which 70% are congresspersons, senators, governors, and heads of all federal and state agencies of any consequence, including the FBI, U.S. Marshals, sheriffs and the entire Department of Justice. We declare all courts of any kind operated and or staffed by any BAR member or an associate of a BAR member is in fact operating in treason against we his people, terrorism, racketeering, human rights violations, and a myriad of other crimes to be determined. There is no justice in the U.S. at this time. We are occupied by an evil force, and this evil occupying force is taking our children, our property, imprisoning and murdering we his people. We his people declare a new monetary system to be determined by vote of we his people. We herewith declare a spiritual warfare against the enemies named herein. We invoke Ephesians 6:10-18 in our war against all these demonic beings anywhere on earth and in heavenly places. We further declare to defend our inalienable rights and our lives at all cost. We declare the first branch of governance, the People's Branch, to have complete authority over all branches of governance on this land and shall have absolute power to repeal any law, adopt any law, and to remove any elected, appointed employee, volunteer or anyone that works in any capacity on this land as a servant of we his people. We declare the first branch of governance, the People's Branch, to have complete authority over the entire judicial system. Never shall the BAR or any entity or being administer justice over we his people. We further declare that the first branch, the People's Branch, shall exclusive rights to administer all laws, all justice on this land by 59% vote of we his people. Never shall we his people be subject to any government or entity whatsoever. That the first branch, the People's Branch, has set forth bylaws, policies, procedures, rules, and regulations for the administration of justice, and said bylaws, policies and procedures are set forth herein and a part hereof. We demand exclusive access and ownership of at least 2 cable channels, 2 satellite channels, 2 AM and 2 FM stations, ham radio frequencies, other TBD, exclusive bandwidth of the Internet, other media and technologies as determined by we his people. This media is for exclusive use of we his people of the People's Branch. All monies earmarked for the judicial branch and the U.S. Marshals are to be transferred to we his people of the People's Branch forthwith. We declare and herewith direct the U.S. Marshals to cease and desist all services to the bar and to any and all bar members, and to cease and desist their protection of these treasonous terrorists and their corrupted courts of which these criminals operate. We further declare and assign the U.S. Marshals as the exclusive law enforcement of and for we his people, of the People's Branch. We elevate the U.S. Marshals to be the highest law enforcement on this land, and herewith grant the U.S. Marshals to have complete authority over all other law enforcement on this land, and the U.S. Marshals shall serve only the will of our Creator and the will of we his people, of the People's Branch. We declare that all sheriffs and all deputies in every county in every state in the lane cease and desist following any order by a bar member, to cease and desist protection of these treasonous terrorists and their corrupted courts of which these criminals operate. We further declare and assign all sheriffs, all deputies, and staff to and in the employ of we his people, of the People's Branch. We herewith declare the sheriffs to be the highest law enforcement in the county, only subject to the U.S. Marshals, and shall serve only the will of our Creator and the will of we his people, of the People's Branch. We his people acknowledge that all filings of his people who filed in their courts which were infested by treasonous crime syndicate racketeering bar members, therefore all filings of any kind may be brought before we his people of the People's Branch. There shall be no time limitation or statute of limitations on said filings, except that said filing must be presented to we his people of the People's Branch within 3 years of the inception of the People's Branch. In addition, anyone may bring charges to we his people of the People's Branch against the treasonous terrorist of the racketeering organized crime syndicate known as the bar, and such beings shall be brought to justice before we his people of the People's Branch. The articles, bylaws, policies, procedures, rules and regulations of the People's Branch are attached hereto and a part hereof as Exhibit E. Articles, bylaws, policies, procedures, rules and regulations of the People's Branch. We declare the following Creator's inalienable rights as follows. We further declare to defend same at all cost. Governance only of, by, and for his people. All decision shall be made by 59% of we his people called at a duly called decision process/vote of we his people. Freedom of choice. Preservation of life. Freedom. Liberty. Pursuit of happiness. Right to peacefully assemble. Right to rebel with violence if necessary against a declared corrupt government. Freedom from government over man. This right to be let alone. Right to do nothing. Right to do anything that is not contrary to the commands given by our Creator and that which is listed herein. To travel freely on the land. To reproduce. To love whomever we want. To live with whomever we want. Right to farm. To bear arms of any kind. To speak, to have absolute freedom of speech. Own without limitation real and personal property. To barter, to create the exchange of property without limitation, including the creation and use of monies of any kind. To contract. To commerce. Amendment I. The People's Branch shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. A unregulated militia must be established by we his people, such is mandatory and necessary to the security of our freedom. A free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed in any way whatsoever. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house, without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, property, children, friends, and any and all effects, against unreasonable searches and seizures, shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched, and the persons or things to be seized. No person shall be held to answer for a capital, or otherwise infamous crime, unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, including in cases arising in the land or naval forces, or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Never shall anyone lose their rights to defend themselves before the grand jury of the people's branch, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property, without due process of law as exclusively promulgated by the people's branch, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Such taking of private property must be for the good of we his people, and such shall be determined by the people's branch exclusively, and just compensation shall be set forth by the people's branch. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial, by an impartial jury of the people's branch in the state and district wherein the crime allegedly has been committed. To be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. All cost including cost of counsel shall be initially borne by we his people. Never shall justice be operated as a business, never shall any entity have a monopoly on justice. In the event there is a prevailing party, the non-prevailing party shall pay all actual expenses and cost of said trial. Anyone can represent another in any proceeding whatsoever. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $1, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States, than according to the rules of the common law. Bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. The enumeration in the Constitution, of certain rights, shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained herein by the people. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. We declare the following commandments and laws as irrevocable, and we his people shall enforce same at all cost. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall make no idols or worship same. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Keep the Sabbath day holy. Honor your father and your mother, unless they are deemed sick or lost. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet. There shall be no fictitious organizations. No one person nor fictitious entity shall own and control this land's natural resources. All resources on this land are owned by we his people, and commercial use of resources on this land shall be granted by the people's branch. We his people shall always maintain controlling interest of all resources, and shall share equally in the commercialization of said resources at a percentage to be determined by we his people, the first branch, the people's branch. We his people the undersigned, and or by way of the doctrine of written joinder, enjoin herewith this declaration in its entirety, accepting all terms and conditions stated herein, this irrevocable declaration of independence/dependence of, by, and for his people, one nation under our Creator, a nation indivisible with all our Creator's inalienable rights intact and enforced by we his people.